sure that it connects with everyone. All right, we got like 30 people waiting already. That's fun.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. All right, I think we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another author hangout. And tonight we have special guest Giana Darling. Yay! We're so excited. We're so excited. Thank you so much for being willing to do this. These have just been some of the best conversations when people are willing to jump on. So I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Yeah, so I don't know. I know you maybe like interacted with some of us at different points, but I'll let the ladies say hello, and then we'll kind of dive in to some of the beginning questions while everyone's showing up. So
cool.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Tori. My channel's Novel Life, or Live a Novel Life on Instagram. I am super excited. I don't really do a lot of author hangouts. I think this is my second one. So I am a huge fan, more recent, but I am super excited just to be able to talk to you, hear you answer some questions. I always jump on your lives on Instagram when you do them. I love them so much. I love everything.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm Jessica. Hi. Nice to finally see you. I've been reading your books since 2018, 2019, so it's been a while. Yeah, but this is our first time talking to each other, so I'm very excited.
I can't believe it, actually. I can't believe it took us this long.
I know. Yeah. I usually don't do a lot of author hangouts either, so I'm excited to see how tonight goes.
It'll be great. It'll be fab.
Yeah.
Giana, where are you back at home right now? You've been traveling all over the place doing fun stuff. So where have you been lately?
Me?
Yeah.
I've been doing fun stuff, have I? Oh, maybe.
I mean, your Instagram shows you fun stuff. Maybe it's just all
No, I think I am back home. I went to Whistler for my birthday, which is actually where some of the Fallen Men series is set. So that was really fun. I hadn't been there in a while because of the vid. So it was fun to go explore there and scout some new locations for some future Fallen Men books and stuff. But I'm back now and just enjoying the fall weather that has already descended. And by enjoying, I'm being sarcastic because I love the summer and I'm sad.
Oh, I feel like it's been a scorching summer for me, a little Midwestern in North Dakota. So I'm just like, please fall. Could you just come? But I understand people all like there.
We've had really bad forest fires. I actually went to a place called Osoyoos, which is the desert in my province in Canada. And there was a forest fire that we actually had to get evacuated because it was right outside the house we were staying at, which was pretty scary. So I'm excited for rain and for this end of forest fires, but I'm an iguana, so I really will miss the sun.
Fair enough. Well, we're going to start out with 3 questions I have been asking every author so far, which is, more focused towards writing. And then we did get a lot of fan questions in, so we'll work through those. So everyone who's watching, just to let you guys know, I will be working through a list of questions first. And when I'm opening it to everyone, I'll let you guys know, just so that I don't miss your questions, because that's been tending to happen. And then I feel bad when I'm like, sorry, I'm asking these first. So anyway, that's what's happening. Just enjoy. So we will start off with this, about when you started writing and what was your first inspiration?
That's a good question. I started writing when I was 8 years old. I had a student teacher. Her name was Miss Standish. If you're out there, Miss Standish, thank you very much. And she did a creative writing assignment. And it was the first time that I had ever done a creative writing assignment. And it was a piece of paper shaped like a giant pumpkin for Halloween, and it was a Halloween themed story. I wrote about my friends and I going into a haunted house, and we blacked out, and in the morning we woke up, we were all different supernatural creatures. I was a vampire. It was even before the vampire phase, so I was obviously ahead of the curve. But yeah, that was the first creative story I ever wrote, and then I was just off and running, and I've basically been writing almost every day since that point. I wanted to be a writer since that moment. And yeah, I mean, I guess that was my first writing experience and my first inspiration.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting you to say 8 years old, so I was just like, whoa.
To say what?
I wasn't expecting you to say 8 years old. So
yeah, long time. Yeah.
That's awesome. So speaking of that, what comes to you first? Your characters or scenarios, or how does that kind of come to you?
That's a good question too. I think I would say that it kind of happens like this. A lot of the time my ideas come to me because I ask a question. Usually like a hypothetical question, or for example, say I was watching a tennis match, I'd be like, well, what would happen if you know, the daughter of a famous tennis player fell in love with his like lifelong rival on the tennis court? You know, I would just suddenly have that thought in my head, and then so I guess I would have the scenario, but basically right after that, I would be like, well, what types of people would be involved in that situation? And the characters come immediately. I can't really write without knowing who the characters are, because it's the characters that inform everything for me. And so that's also why I'm not really a plotter, because I feel like as I get to know the characters as I'm writing, they tell me what is going to happen. So even if I'm like, oh, I really think that this should happen in the book, a lot of the time my characters would be like, no, you don't really get it yet, but we're not into that. And so, yeah, I think it's more the characters, even though maybe the situation could come first. That makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I feel like that's a, I feel like it can come different for each story that there is. Like
for sure. Like with Lessons in Corruption, it was King came first. Like King Calgaro was the character that came first. And I just like saw this picture of this model Christopher Mason on a motorcycle. And then all of a sudden I had King Calgaro in my head. And he was like, oh yeah, and this is also my woman, Cressida, and this is my dad, Zeus. And like, it just kind of exploded from there. And I did not have the story first. It was definitely him. So yeah, it is dependent, but I definitely think that in general, most of my stories are surrounded by the characters and they dictate what happens.
Nice. I want to keep a pin in that because I have a question that will relate to that, but I want to finish these first three. And that's more, and I know people say there's never a typical day, or a week, or like when you're able to be focused, you're working. What does kind of it go? Do you have like a daily goal? Do you just like write until you're tired every day? Do you have a time goal? What does a day of writing look like for you?
I think that I have typical days of writing. I don't think I deviate that much. I mean, if I'm in like the heart of writing, usually I binge write. The culture, the age of binging, I will binge write, and I'll basically lock myself in my office. I'll wake up, I'll make coffee and breakfast, and then I'll inform my partner that I am not going to be available for the next like 12 to 16 hours. And then I'll go into my office or my room. I'll shut the blinds so that it's like completely dark and I'm just in this chamber like of sensory deprivation. And then I'll write for hours and hours and hours. Which, yeah, sometimes I forget to eat and drink and stuff like that, which isn't great. But yeah, that's usually when I'm actually in the middle of writing. That is what my typical day is. It's just really locking myself in a dark room and purging the words. But obviously before that, there's like the research and there's the kind of like my friend Ella Fields and I call it like the percolation stage or the marination stage. We like to liken it to food a lot, where you kind of have to let the idea develop. And so then I maybe have like a looser schedule where maybe I'll write a few ideas down. Maybe I'll be on Pinterest a lot or Spotify, or maybe I do a lot of research for my books. So I'll be reading like, you know, a nonfiction book about the military or about psychopaths or something like that. And then my days are a lot more loosely defined.
I love that. Oh, all the research that goes into the things we love.
Yeah. And it's so fun too. Like, cause then it's cool because you kind of feel like you can live so many different lives as a reader and as an author, you know, that you get to learn as well as kind of escape and enjoy. I think that's kind of a perfect marriage. And I love that about writing and about reading. So I think it's the best part.
I love that. Let's see some of the lots of love for King and Daddy Z. So just gotta share all that.
Understand that.
I appreciate it as well. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so now we're working through. I just have a list of all of the the fan questions that came in. So these will kind of like, they're not really in a theme. They just bounce everywhere. So
Okay.
not really how did you feel when a reader messaged you about a book for the first time?
Oh gosh, it's the best. I love it. It's so funny because I feel like a lot of the time people will say, oh, I'm fangirling because you responded. And I'll say, well, I'm fangirling because you messaged me. Like it's the best thing and people will also say a lot of the time, oh, I'm sorry for bothering you. And I'm like, you're not bothering me. You're making my day. I mean, it's awesome that the idea that you could affect someone for a second, let alone a minute or an hour or like for a long time eternally, is so impactful and so magical that it really is a surreal, fantastical sensation to see someone message you just to say anything about your books. It's amazing.
Yeah. I bet that really, kind of helps keep up morale or helps like push out the next story sometimes if you're ever having a bad day.
Definitely. I mean, I wouldn't say I have that many bad days. I'm pretty good at like keeping the blinders on and not really, I only intake the positive stuff. The negative stuff can just go away. But definitely it's one of those things. I would say actually, if I'm having a bad day in my personal life, knowing that I have this community and I have these readers who are honestly, I'm obviously biased, but my readers are so lovely. Like everyone is just so nice and kind and open, and it's such a beautiful thing. And for me, it's almost like a solace from my personal life if I'm having a bad day. Not even just like if I'm not sure about my story or something, that's not really the problem. But like if I'm feeling low, I can just come on to Instagram or I can interact with my readers and I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky and blessed to have people who don't only care about my words, but care about me as a person, which is just very cool.
And I do agree with the person who just commented how you're good with connecting with your fans because you share so much of what your fans share. And not a lot of authors actually do that. Like in your Instagram stories, you're just like every day, you're constantly, no. I don't know what you guys think, but I rarely see authors re-sharing what their readers share.
Yeah.
Well, but it's so fantastic to see what people are doing. And I feel like other readers are interested too. Like a beautiful edit, we all want to see that. You know, that's
fan
so cool.
art people make. Oh my gosh.
It's amazing. It's mind-blowing what people do. Sometimes I honestly just sit and stare. I'm like, I don't even know what to say about this. And I'm supposed to know what to say at all times because I'm supposed to be a wordsmith and I can't even have words for this because it's amazing. So I think definitely it deserves to be shared. And if someone's going to put time into something to honor your work, I mean, again, I think that's magical. So it definitely deserves to be shared.
Yeah. I think it's something so special when, that's what keeps me reading every day is looking for that next book that you feel that excited about, like that's what I do with all of my free time is read stories and inhale them. And if I wasn't getting that feeling from it, if I wasn't connecting, it's like, well, why am I wasting my time if you're not able to feel that, So I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, Tiffany's the best. She loves your books. All the friends in here. Cool. Okay. So yes, I know this, but I think the person asking maybe doesn't pay as close attention as I do. But tell us about the timeline for the audiobooks because we're very excited.
Actually, yeah, so it is really exciting. The first three and then the short story Fallen Sun. So Lessons in Corruption, Welcome to the Dark Side, and Good, Gone Bad, and Fallen Sun are coming out this week on audio. Yeah. Very excited. Yeah, very, very exciting. I can't even tell you how excited I am. I never was an audiobook listener at all. And then when I decided that I needed to make the Fallen Men into audio, I was like, I should probably learn about the narrators and the stuff. And now I'm just obsessed. It's so amazing to hear a book brought to life with a really great narrator. So I really did a lot of research on the right ones for my Fallen Men characters. And I'm really excited to share who's going to be narrating them. It's a surprise.
I'm excited. I'm very excited because like, obviously we all love audiobooks who are on this and a lot of my viewers do. And I have some guesses in my head. And there's some people that I'm like, I hope that she like got this person.
Tell me your guess. Tell me your guesses.
Oh my gosh. I feel like having Wen and Kai do one of your books at some point would be a very good choice because They're pretty amazing. They do more like mafia than I haven't heard them do MC stuff, but they're kind of my favorite ever, and I'm obsessed with them. So I would love that. But
You know, some narrators won't do MC. That's what I also discovered. So I had a few like dream casting kind of situations that I wasn't able to do because some narrators won't do dark romance basically. And obviously if you read my books, like
obviously,
we don't need them anyways if they don't want to do dark romance.
That's why there is kind of like there's that pool of people that pop in my head because
they do
dark, you know, and I listen to mostly dark romance and historical. I'm that person. Historical and dark romance.
Which overlap.
Oh, girl.
They do.
Gotta preach to me. I'm re-listening to Lord of Scoundrels for my book club, and I was like, this is literally a dark romance.
Totally it's a dark romance. It's also a fabulous romance, but it's definitely dark. It's like
Lord of
the whole premise of it is like dark.
Like when he's like speaking Italian to her and saying all of his deepest thoughts about her, but she's like, what he's saying, and he's like, nothing. Calling her his greatest, like, oh, I just love that shit. I just am like,
I love any hero that speaks another language. Like you can talk to me in, I don't even know, like Sanskrit or like I don't know, whatever, and I don't care because it's so cool. It's like I think it's a kink. I don't know if there's a word for this kink, but like speaking another language. I'm like, ooh, I'm instantly attracted to you.
That's part of the reason why like some narrators I love the most. They can do all of those foreign accents because they do mafia, like they're doing all of those like you know.
So I'm getting the Anti-Heroes in Love duet also made into audio. It's happening. I think it's happening right now. They're producing it right now. And so that was another thing. I got two people who are native Italian speakers because I wanted them to be able to do justice to the Italian in the book. It was also kind of tricky, speaking of accents. I talk a lot in the Anti-Heroes in Love duet about how Dante has this like mixed accent of like American and British and Italian. And so the poor narrator was like, so can you kind of help me with this? And I was like, well, just mix them all together and let's see what happens. And so he was a huge sweetheart, and he actually ended up sending me a bunch of samples so I could like pick what mixture, like 75% this and 10% this. And in the end, I think we got it really well.
It's funny you say that because I'm an audiobook person. When I heard that, I was like, oh, I wonder what he sounds like. In my head.
So I think we got it pretty good, and it's really sexy. But I'm excited about that too. And then the last 3 in the Fallen Men, to just finish up the question, they're going to be out probably early in the new year, probably before I release book 7. Okay. And I'm actually doing a simultaneous audiobook release of book 7. Ooh. So that's exciting.
Yay.
Yeah. That's going to be so good for you. Like, I don't even, like, just like, that's going to be so good for you.
I'm very excited.
I
always wanted to, but I have never been organized enough.
I was gonna say it's a lot of work, right? Because Kennedy Ryan did it for real, and she was telling us everything that went into simultaneous release.
Well, when you're an indie author, like you can kind of like cut your deadline closer if you are, and like when you do audiobook, you can't do that. You gotta have done.
You need it like at least 2 months before you want to do a release, and so but I'm being a good girl, so I'm like ahead of schedule, and I actually will start writing The Fallen Men book 7 like in a week or 2. So I should be done.
When are we gonna know who it's about?
Well, Jess, you know that I only tell you like maybe a month or maybe 2 beforehand.
I know.
So if it's in early 2022, you probably won't find out until. Yeah, I would probably say you won't find out until maybe January. But I don't know. Sometimes I'll change my mind, or I'll come up with an idea that I think is cool and I want to do that instead. Or I'll probably do the messenger bot again, which I did for Inked Lies, where you got to talk to the hero through Facebook Messenger before the book came out, and he kind of would like reveal little tidbits about what's going on, and I'll probably do that again too because it's just so fun, and I'm a massive tease, and that's just another way to make that fun. So I mean, you won't find out for a while, but I think lots of people have very intense guesses, which always makes me giggle. But yeah,
There's so many options.
There's a lot of options. Yeah. There's a lot of options.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Do you guys have guesses?
I don't.
Everyone wants Wrath, is what I was saying.
Yeah,
so.
Everyone always wants Wrath. Like since Good
Someone
God Bad
straight
came
up.
out,
This was one of my questions. Someone was just like,
and Lysander, yes.
Yeah, lots of people want Lysander and Honey too. I saw that.
Yeah.
And then like there's a Cleo with a bunch of people, like Cleo with Wrath, Cleo with Bat, and Cleo with Kodiak. Those have all come up a ton of time. Which I think is interesting that people have like there's no one person, I guess, in their mind. Sometimes when I see these, I'm like, what did I do to plant that seed in people's mind? Like, I'm trying to remember. And I do leave breadcrumbs because I think it's fun. And I think it's fun as a reader, like at least for me, to be a Sherlock and to have the opportunity to kind of speculate. I think that's fun. So I like to do that with The Fallen, but I also like to shock people with my choices. So, you know, I don't know if book 7 is going to be an obvious couple or not.
I love that. I think so. For me with that, like I don't have any like diehard set in that series. I just like to go with whoever. Like in that series, I'm just like just whoever. Like I'm ready.
I love to hear that too, because I get nervous, right? When people are so diehard about a couple, especially, I'm like, you know, that might not happen, and then I get a bit nervous, especially because The Fallen is so popular. People get really like I get emails of people with like massive fan theories and like they're so passionate about this character, that character, like they really want, and people will be super specific, like I want this character to be with a person of this nationality and I want them to be this much younger or this much older, and I'm like, oh well,
I'm not custom writing for you.
Like I love your ideas, but I have my own ideas too, so. And then I just get worried that I will disappoint someone. And obviously I will end up disappointing people, but I don't want to. So I always kind of go in and I'm like, I hope that you can trust me. I have these ideas in my head and that's where I see them going. So I'm sorry for anyone who's disappointed by future choices I make.
Oh, we'll love them anyway. Okay, well, we're switching gears to this because I'm super excited. Originally, this was going to be just a couple days before this came out, and then we had a little bit of a change, but that happens. But I've talked with another author who has someone in the Midnight Dynasty, but I'd love to hear your experience with getting involved with it. And this is where I said put a pin in it because the question about like characters or scenarios coming, I wanted you to kind of apply that with this since you're writing within this world. So.
Well, first of all, pardon me, Skye Warren is like one of my favorite human beings and authors and just people. She's just like extraordinary. And from an author perspective, she's one of those people who really wants to like rise everyone up. And she's so fantastic and she's so, you know, wildly successful, but she has time for everyone and to like give advice and to nurture and mentor. And I just think that's a really beautiful thing. I mean, that's priceless for other authors. And so when she approached me and I think it was very vague actually at first, she sent me an email being like, do you want to be involved in this new project I'm doing? No pressure. And I think that was literally the message. And I was like, sign me up 100%, whatever it is, I'm into it. And she was like, oh, well, you don't have to commit right away. And I was like, no, I'm down. Just let me know what we're doing. And then the cool thing was there's obviously this world that already exists with these two families, the Constantines and the Morellis. And so I think I was asked to do it pretty early. So really lots of characters were open. I knew immediately that I wanted to write about the Morelli family because the Constantines are like the perfect, illustrious family, you know, they're all pristine and whatever. And I was like, no. I want the shady Morelli family, you know, with the underground ties and the brutal backstory and the kind of underdog story. So I knew I wanted to write about a Morelli, and I had this scenario that I wanted to write about for a while of basically the enemy of a family somehow ending up in a guardianship role to his enemy's kids or something like that. I kind of wanted to have this guardian ward. I had this idea already. And then I looked at the family tree and I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is the perfect vehicle for this story. And it really is. And so I think I was like, Sky, what about this? And she was like, done, let's do it. I love it. Wonderful. So it was really quite seamless. And also, yeah, it's nice because Sky just like trusts her authors to do what they do best within this realm. So when I was like, oh, well, do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? She was like, just do whatever you want to. And if we have to make a change for continuity or something, we can do that. So I was a bit nervous about kind of writing within a realm that was not my own. I'm quite, I don't know, like I've written co-written 2 short stories, and that was fine because they were short stories, but I like live in my own head with my stories. I can't really articulate what's going to go on because it's just in my head and it's a special place. So I was concerned about having these boundaries kind of imposed on my inner world, but it ended up being there was lots of space to roam. And so it wasn't a problem at all. And it was actually really fun because I got to read some of these amazing authors' really cool stories. And I love, as you know, if you read any of my books, like the Lombardi world is all intertwined, the Fallen Men's all intertwined. And I love fitting pieces of puzzles together like that and seeing how perspective can change your opinion on characters and situations. So it was really fun to do that with Dangerous Temptation and kind of take moments and people that you've seen before and give them even more like complexity.
Yeah. I think
And
that's awesome.
you just finished Dangerous Temptation, right?
At the end of July.
Yeah, I remember you posting. You're like, it's done. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's done. It's also a different process for me in terms of like the post writing it process is different. There's a lot more eyes on it, and a lot more kind of changes to be made and things like that. So we're going through that editorial process now, which is really cool and really interesting. If I ever wanted to do traditional publishing, it would be even more than this situation. So I think it's kind of a good middle ground to see how it goes. And so far it's going great. So yeah.
I'm sure that's mostly, like you said, like the continuity stuff or making sure things like fit with the rest of the world.
For sure. Yeah. And I wasn't able to read all of the other Midnight Dynasty books because there's a lot of them. And I also had this year I was just being crazy. I've been writing a lot. And so I was like, I don't have time to read like for pleasure even, but I read some of them to make sure that I got, you know, a sense for the characters and stuff. But so there's like a person who just does continuity and reads it for that and like talks to us and makes sure that it's all done. So
it's nice.
Yeah.
I've read, I think, like half of them. I found out about the Midnight Dynasty like with Lessons in Sin, not knowing I'd already read 6 other books that fit in the world and did not know. It was one of my favorite. I had read the Jade West series and the Kay Webster series. Did not put together the names, which those ones are kind of like
they're like 2 families. Yeah.
Right. I had no idea that Elaine Constantine was this Constantine's sister until I was reading the back of Lessons in Sin. And I'm like, what the fuck? I've read all of these. And then I looked it up and I was like, duh. Okay, I knew this because some viewer had told me like, there's this whole world by this thing.
I had no idea.
And I think that's a good thing though, because I think sometimes it's hard. Like I did this series called the Elite 7 series, and everything was literally like it had to be read in order basically for you to understand what was going on. And there were 7 books, and each book was by a different author, and that kind of is difficult in the sense that I wrote book 6. So for people who really wanted to read my book, it was awkward for them because maybe they didn't have time or they didn't have the inclination to read the books before. So then they lose out on all that backstory when they read my book, or they kind of have to read, even if they don't want to understand my book, or they just don't read my book, even though they want to. And so what I really like about the Midnight Dynasty world is you don't have to read any of the other series to understand. And people have asked me that a lot. Like Tiernan who's the hero in my book. He's the 3rd born Morelli, a son. And he's mentioned like in Molly O'Keefe's series very briefly. He has like a scene that he's in and he says like 5 sentences or something, and then he's mentioned literally like 1 sentence in another book. So it's not like you need to read those those books to understand. But then the cool thing is if you really enjoy the stories and you're curious about the other characters, you can go in and read as you choose. And I think that's kind of the perfect situation.
Yeah, it's really cool because I hadn't even noticed, but then as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, this perfectly like fits with them. So then I went and read the prep school ones. I went to read.
Oh yeah, by Becker Gray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think that's such a brilliant idea, and it's amazing that this whole thing has been like orchestrated and getting put together because it really is. It's pretty brilliant idea. So
it's a lot of work too for like Sky and for everyone at Dangerous Romance Press. It amazes me that they do all of this. I just have to write a book. I mean, they have to do all the other stuff. It's pretty phenomenal.
It's crazy.
I had no idea all those were in the same series at all. Like, this is the first time I'm learning about this. Are Lessons in Sin Pam Godwin's?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
She's the
she's the youngest.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the youngest sister of the Constantine from Kay Webster's and Elaine's sister from that. Like they're like all.
I love Lessons in Sin. Oh my god, it's so good.
I know.
Interesting.
I love Magnus so much.
Yeah, he's very sexy. I love the bad freaks. The like Sierra Simone also.
I know.
Like, I just finished Saint and it was like really good. So, I'll look out for that.
2 more days. I'm like, I wish it came out on a Monday because I don't have to work tomorrow. And I'm like, damn it, it comes out on it's okay. I'm used to it by now.
Just not sleep. That's what I do. I just don't sleep.
Right. Oh my gosh. The only reason I was kicking myself with it is that I did read the books when they first because I think Kay Webster's ones were the first one or the very close to the beginning. So the only thing that I kicked myself is that I could have been reading them all as they came out, and now I'm like 8 books, but 10, 12 books behind everything because I do want to read them all, but it's good. Read them in between.
You've got time. The endless TBR will always be endless.
Somehow I can read 70 books a month and it's still not enough, Giana. I don't know what to do.
I don't know how you read them. It's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Move on to some more of these questions. So we'll get to this. So who is your favorite hero you've written about?
I hate these questions because
I always like to put these in there.
and I basically never really answer them because it's just like it. I don't know. I'm also not a comparative person. So I don't really believe in being like, oh, this is better than this, because everything has its own beauty and everything has its own wonders and pitfalls and stuff. So for me, like, I think it would depend on the day. When I am writing a book, that hero is my favorite hero. Like, I'm obviously really engaged with them. And I also have found that I almost like lose ownership of my heroes, I feel. And like they become my readers' heroes. And so like that kind of happened with Daddy Zeus. I never say Daddy Zeus is my favorite hero because he's everyone's favorite hero. So like he doesn't need to be my favorite. Does that make sense? Like it's like a child, right? Like he gets all the attention. He's the golden boy. So I'm going to talk about like Lionel Danner, who's my most underrated like fallen man hero, you know, or I'm going to talk about Alexander Davenport because, you know, people don't talk about him very much. And definitely most people's favorite hero are like Priest or Daddy Z.
Dante.
Dante. I mean, no, I would say like Priest and Zeus get talked about like the most. So then I don't feel like I have to say that they're my favorite heroes. I don't know. I honestly don't really know. I think I'm a sucker for blonde men. So
surprise.
I love like Alexander and I love Lionel Danner, and they also I don't know, I love them all. I don't know what to say. I love them. I wouldn't write a hero that wasn't like my favorite hero. We just wouldn't really. And then actually I will say even for example, I don't really want to give anything away, but like book 7 of the Fallen Men series, he's a different hero. And so I think at first when I was like, oh, I'm going to write this book next, that's going to be weird. I don't know if I'm going to be into that. and I was a bit nervous. And then it's like, as I've been marinating my ideas, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to write about this hero. This hero is so fantastic. So sometimes I think I'm like, oh, I'm nervous about writing this. Or like Priest. Priest was so different than anything that I had ever written. I mean, he's a psychopath. So I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this. I don't know. And then I'm like, oh my God, of course I'm enjoying this. He's amazing. So I don't know. I think just in the moment, every hero I'm writing is my favorite. And after that, I kind of relinquish them to my readers. And I wouldn't say that I have a favorite.
I have to show this comment because this is my bestest friend from high school and the love of my life. And she's obsessed with Sinclair. And I'm sorry.
I love Sinclair.
But I'm showing this for her because she would hurt me if I didn't. She holds the torch for Sinclair. And I'm like, okay.
I love that. I love it when people love Sinclair. And I love it when it's so funny because just a little quick anecdote. It's weird because in the Lombardi series, there's some contentious situations that go on. There's like affairs and there's neglect and there's, you know, sold into sexual slavery. Like there's a lot of really intense things that happen. And so they can be polarizing, obviously. But it's funny as the author, especially the family dynamics of the Lombardi family, they're very complicated. And there are definitely some fallouts between siblings, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, it's so hard, really, because some people feel very passionately about who they like in the family and who they absolutely like. They like will go into detail about how they wish that like a character would die and like, doesn't deserve to share a page or a universe with another character. And I don't know why I wasn't expecting that, but I wasn't. And it's a strange feeling as an author to be like, because you're like, but my babies, like, I don't understand. How can you hate them? I'm like, did you not read their story? Because if you did, then you would understand from their perspective, it's a totally different story. And like, you know, but it is something that's interesting that I don't think before I was an author, I ever could have fully understood what it's like to, as I said, you create these worlds and you have these feelings about these characters, but then when you publish them, it doesn't really matter what you think anymore. It's all about what other people think. And so it's a strange process to kind of see how people react and not have a personal reaction to that.
I have a very, like, the reason also why I showed Shauna's comment is, besides her being my bestie forever, I went to visit her recently. I hadn't seen her in a while. And we wwere discussing her books. And I read, Elena was my first Lombardi that I read. And so when I read the other ones, Tori will attest to this because we talked about it. I was like, I will kill for this woman. So when I read the others, I'm like, I understand what's happening. I understand what's going on. I can rationally read this book, but I will knife someone for Elena. And so I just ended up wanting to kill a lot of her family.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I definitely feel like I should be more upfront about like, or I should blast everywhere the suggested reading order, because if you start with Elena's, and people feel very intensely about Elena, which I love because people hated her before she had a book. Just so everyone knows, people actually hated her. And when I said I was writing a book for her, people were like, don't do it. You know, so it's funny because all of a sudden it went from people actively despising her and not wanting her to have a story to people being like, I will murder for Elena.
Yes, I will.
It was a huge shit. And it's
Dante will murder people for Elena, so it's fine.
Yes, yeah. You guys don't have to murder anyone. Dante's got that all sorted out. But yeah, it's interesting, and and it's weird because I think that the beautiful thing about Elena is she was not her best self, and I think to ignore that and ignore her past actions, which have not been very praiseworthy and have not been coming from a good place, to ignore that is to ignore the evolution of Elena, and that's what makes her so amazing. So I kind of will just go like, well, remember, she wasn't always amazing. She had this growth, and that's what made her amazing. So when people are upset with her siblings' reactions to her and stuff like that, they're basically ignoring her entire 26-year history of being not the best sister. And she had her reasons for that, but people aren't mind readers and people have their own experiences. So, you know, they don't know what Elena's going through. We know now because we read her perspective. And that's just my little soapbox about not hating on all the other Lombardis because I think they're fab too.
No. this is what you say. You get fans for certain things, and you know, those other books are still beautifully written as well. It's just when you're reading them and you have a heart for Elena, you're like, I hate you all. This is a beautiful story, but I don't like you.
Maybe you can explain to me. I don't understand why people hate Cosima for Elena.
Oof. I have a reason.
Why?
Well, I don't want to spoil for people, but also I feel like Cosima has some knowledge and she figures some things out. And I feel like she picks a sister. That's how I feel. That's how me as your reader, I saw it happen. Tori and I actually buddy read these together and I was like, did you see that? She knows. She knows. And I also had this argument with Shauna. See, I got passionate about these, which is beautiful. It's great. I love that. But I was like, I feel like she knew, and I feel like she picks a sister, and that hurt me. And so then Shauna was like, well, what if we were sisters and you did this? And I was like, I would still tell you. So anyway.
I think it's hard to say unless you're in a situation. I was in a situation that this is kind of based off of, where a friend of mine was in a long-term relationship with another person, and they were both my friends. Like at that point, we were very close. And one person ended up confessing that they had an affair to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, first of all, I hate you because now I'm involved in this.
Yeah.
And second of all, how am I supposed to respond to this? And it's a moral conundrum. And you know me, I love moral conundrums. And so I was like, I have to explore this. And I don't think that there's a right or a wrong response to this. Like you have to do what you think is best. And there's going to be mistakes inherent in either decision that you make, obviously. And that's what makes it so wonderful. I love messiness. That is life. Life is messy. You're not going to always make the right decision. You can have the purest intentions and you can totally colossally fuck up. So I love that. And I do love that you have a passionate response to those stories. And I love that everyone does. It's again, it's magic that people would have passion about these characters and stuff. So it's awesome. But yeah, it's funny because I'm like, wait, what? I don't understand.
That was just, I was like, oh my gosh. No, if it's happening in real life to you, these are real people's lives. When you're reading it fictional, it's a lot easier to get black and white and stuff and be like, you're supposed to do this. Like, that's what I do all day long. And I read Mafia almost all the time. And I was like, this is what you're supposed to do. Why aren't you listening to me?
One thing I found really interesting is I read the Anti-Heroes duet, then I read the Enslaved duet, and then I read the Evolution sentence. I went backwards.
Yeah.
And one thing I realized is that there's so many more layers than I think some people may not realize when you read it either backwards or even forward. But the characters, even though they have their own books, like Elena and Dante have their own book, Elena's story starts in Evolution of Sin. Yeah. And I like that. I mean, I did it backwards, but I still enjoyed that. I got to go back and see what she started with Cosima, with I just blanked on Sinclair. Yeah, all of them. Like I just love that you get to see everything with all of the sisters and even the heroes too, because they're all there. And I enjoyed, like, even though they're their own things and their own romances, they all intertwine in a way that I don't really see a lot of authors do all too much. Like I don't read that many. So
yeah, I love that you feel that way because I'm obsessed, as I kind of mentioned earlier, with that layering. I think it's so cool to see people in different circumstances, and just like even in the Fallen Men, you still get to see couples and you get to see characters kind of be set up maybe for their own books and stuff. And it's like when you really love something, you want to know more about it. So it's cool because it's not like you just leave these characters behind. You get to revisit them in like really interesting and ways in different perspectives, which can be kind of enlightening, I think. And I just love doing that. So I'm glad that you enjoyed that.
One thing that held true, I will die for Dante all the way through. Like
I love Dante.
The minute he shows up, I was like, I love you. I absolutely love you. I love you. So,
you know, I think I said this before I released Anti-Heroes in Love. I think like one of the I think Dante and Zeus are actually quite similar, and that and people love this kind of hero where they're these like big badass motherfuckers who will like kill people without a qualm, like with their huge bare hands. Just, okay, and then they'll go have like a drink. The thing that makes them so amazing is when they commit and when they decide to protect and love something or someone, they will just lay down their life without blinking for that person. And that kind of loyalty and that kind of passion and like aggression for you is something that is really romantic. And I think it's really rare in real life. And so we love it when we see it in books.
Mhm.
It feels so like powerful.
Yeah.
But that's all your heroes.
Yeah. Well, typically. I don't know if Tiernan Morelli would lay down his life for Bianca quite yet, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the like singular moments that first clicked for me with Dante was when Elena comes to stay at his house and he's like, don't disrespect anybody that way. Like, you won't be doing that. I love that moment so much because you're like, this is the kind of leader that this man is that he sees everyone that he is above, that he leads, he sees them and they will not be. And they're like, you don't see that in Mafia a lot. It's kind of just like you're a mercenary, you'll just deal whatever the fuck is gonna happen. I don't know. It's like little moments like that, like little details you build into a character where I'm just like, oh. So
I'm so glad that you noticed those and love those, because it was funny. Someone commented once on like a live I did, and they were like, you talk about them like they're real people. And she was saying she was watching my live and her husband was in the room, and her husband asked if I was talking about real people, and they are real to me. And so I do talk about them like they're real, because you know, when something like lives in your head, it makes me sound like I'm crazy, but you know, when people live in your head, and they don't just live in my head for the length of the time I'm writing that book, they live in it for years beforehand sometimes, and they live in it for years afterwards, and you kind of never stop having them be a part of you. And so I love those little gritty details of like, when you have a best friend, you're like, yeah, well, I know that, you know, Shauna hates peanuts, but she loves Reese's peanut butter cups. You know, like those little tiny details, I think are like what really forge intimacy and really like give insight into that. And so
it's the three-dimensional stuff of it that you just, when you read it, you feel like you know the person, because it's not just a two-dimensional on the page. So absolutely. Okay, I have to keep going. I just want to ramble about everything, but I got a bunch of other questions. So where did Elena's love for piano come from?
Like, where was the inspiration, or where was her actual love for piano come from?
It wasn't super. This one, there was a follow-up part to this that I like cut off, but it was also like, did she just appear in your head already playing piano, or like, did you decide to was kind of how the question went.
Okay, so then I can answer that. So basically, yes, I kind of feel that obviously the Lombardis didn't have a great childhood. You see that in like all of the books in the Lombardi world. And I feel that a lot of the times when people are struggling, they have something as like an anchor, or something that brings them peace, or something that they can pour that kind of angsty energy into to find a momentary reprieve. You know, it can be reading, it can be writing, it can be art. And for Elena, it was playing piano. And also for Elena, she has this kind of mentality of she wants to be perfect, and she wants to be the best she can be, not only for herself, but for the other people in her life. And growing up for Elena, she didn't really feel like she contributed the way that she should have. Like, her twin siblings that were much younger than her were making money and, you know, taking care of them. And she kind of felt like, I think, a little bit helpless, and a little bit like she didn't really have an opportunity to shine or help as much as she could have. And with piano, that was something her siblings didn't do. She just did that. And it was her thing, and she could be good at it, and she could go to Signora Donata's house and like learn this and flourish at it and have that be her thing. And that was kind of like her comfort and her peace. And so that was why Elena had this relationship with piano, and why it's a very intimate bond she has with it, why she doesn't play for a while, and why when she does, it's quite emotional.
Again. Will we get more of Lou and Daddy Z?
Okay, so I say this every time people ask this question. You guys know me. If I give you more Lou and Daddy Z, I will destroy their lives.
Yeah.
And that's not an empty threat. You saw after the fall. I destroyed King and Cressida. Do you want me to eviscerate Daddy Zeus and Lou after everything that they've already been through?
No.
That's what I ask people, because I'm like, you sit with that, and you come back and you tell me if you still want more Daddy Z. And
that was such a passionate answer.
Sorry, you don't understand how much I get asked this question. Probably every day. And so I just always like to respond in that manner of, you sit with that for a while and you think about it, and then you come back and you can ask me that question again if you want to. And most of the time people are like, no, don't do it.
People don't understand that, like, if an author's writing a story, there has to be a conflict. Like, do you want them to have more conflict? No.
Yeah.
Okay, leave it alone.
Exactly. And I'm like, what do you think I'm going to write about? Just their daily lives? Come on, you would hate
That's
that.
boring.
So you kind of have to, you know, let's be realistic about that. And I'm not saying I'm not going to. But I will also say, you see Daddy Z and Lou in every single Fallen Men book. Like, you've seen them, you know, and they've had some sort of role to play in every single book after Welcome to the Dark Side. They're the patriarch and matriarch of the Fallen family. You'll see them through all the books. They had more time in Fallen Sun. They have time in Fallen King. It's not like they're absent. They're everywhere. So that's kind of my answer for now is you see them. You're going to see them.
Yep.
Relax. But the idea of them having another book is something that I am not willing to say anything about. But I'm not really willing to say anything about the future of anyone, so it's not surprising.
Right. Yeah. See, Jessica doesn't like books where people are happy, and I do. So I'm like, me, when I think of this question, which it wasn't my question, but when I think of it, I'm like, will there be like an anthology of Fallen Men at some point where we get little shorts of seeing people or something? That's what me personally, but that's not what everyone wants. So, but
yeah, I think I also feel passionately about it, or get like maybe slightly triggered by it, because there's so many other people like that you could fall in love with, and Daddy Z and Lou are never going to go away. But like their story, you loved it, you loved their story. So can't we just let them have that? Can't we just like let them be happy and we can have enjoyed? Because I know if I wrote another book for like Lou and Daddy Z, inevitably people would be disappointed in it, because I can't rewrite their story. They already had happened. And so I just couldn't go back and like, I don't know, make the same situations happen again to appease people that basically just didn't want their book to end. Like, so I just say like, think about it for a second, guys. And then also there's so many other wonderful Fallen characters to come that you might fall in love with. Like, think about Priest. People thought that Daddy Z couldn't be beaten. And then so many people read Priest and they were like, he's my favorite now. So just give me a chance to make you fall in love with some other characters as well.
Well, I think I love how you put that though about like, what do you want me to do them? Because one of my favorite Mafia authors is Serena Ackroyd. I love her, brilliant, and she's writing a second book for another character. And like, she's already told us what the horrible things are that happen to these people. I'm like, no, I don't want to read it. I don't want to read it, but I will. So I think that's a great way to put it. It's like, do you want to see more pain and suffering?
Because obviously they need to have pain and suffering. I don't believe in romances without pain and suffering. That's like, I don't, because life is not a fairy tale. Life sucks sometimes, and life's hard, and it's filled with pain and ugliness, and that's what makes all the beautiful moments and all the lovely moments so like poignant. So I'm never gonna write a rom-com, let's just say that.
Giana bringing the sass. Rereads are a thing, y'all.
Go reread the book.
That.
The audiobooks are coming next week, this week, everyone.
And there's a special Fallen Men surprise that's coming this week as well.
What? Yeah, I've been hearing about. I'm hearing some whispers. What's happening? Okay, everyone, I'm almost done with my list of questions, and then because some people are starting to drop questions, I'm almost done. We'll do these quick. Do you plan on writing any romance?
Oh yeah, I think I talk about it like all the time.
Yeah,
I do, because I'm obsessed with male romances. This is my, I don't know if you can see, like this, the whole shelf here is my favorite romances that I just have to have in paperback. Actually, there's another one over there. But I basically only read romances anymore, or like that's all I read, and I'm obsessed with them. Like I must have been a gay man in every other past life that I had. Seriously, because I love them.
Have you seen the Necessary Evil series yet by Onley James?
No.
Oh,
the first one's Unhinged. I'm reading that one right now.
I know you are. They are a family of psychopaths that this doctor put together, a family of 7 men to murder bad people. So it's a family of 7, and they're all MM. They're all MM.
Oh
Bitch, go get it right now.
That's amazing. Well, I go through these phases. Like I go through these trope phases with male romance. So right now, I'm really into hockey romances. Like I had read like Him and Us, and I'd read like a few, but right now I'm on such a hardcore binge of like male romances with hockey that I think I downloaded like 30
Oh, wow.
Male audiobooks.
Those are good.
And I do
Those are
like a
good,
deep
but-
dive into Goodreads and like I just like download the samples. I just like I'm obsessed with male romance. So the long and the short of it is yes, I'm gonna write male romance. I have so many like really exciting ideas that I really want to write. It's just honestly a matter of time. I kind of feel like I have these two worlds right now, like the Lombardi and the Fallen, and I would like to kind of close out the Lombardi before I start doing a bunch of other stuff. And I'm really a series person because I just get attached to my characters and I can't leave them. And so that's why things take longer too, because I'm like, oh, I love this. But then I should probably also give a book for this and this and this. So I'd like to kind of not be all over the place. I know it bothers readers and it kind of bothers me when authors are like, oh, here's one book in this series and then one book in this series and then I'm not going to get back to the original series for like 7 years. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
So I don't really want to do that. So I would love to write a male romance, like definitely not next year because I have next year planned already and I don't have time. Maybe the year afterwards. Like I'm dying to write one, but I'm appeasing myself because next year I'm writing my male female trilogy about Sebastian Lombardi. So we get some MMS in there.
Like, there'll be some sword crossing there. So
oh hell yeah, and it's gonna be great.
I'm literally reading an MMF bodyguard one. I was reading it right up until I started this beforehand. I'm like, oh, I love this so much.
It's so good. It's like I actually have said to my men before, I love you. You're awesome. But how awesome would it be if there was 2 of you? That would be great. And he was like, I don't even know how to say that.
What was his reaction?
Like, I'm a lot of women. I mean, if there was more of you, that would be great. So I love writing them. I love MMF. I love MM. I love FF. I have a plan to write FF romance as well. So yeah, it's all very exciting.
Love it. Okay, just a few more of these ones. Okay. Who of your heroes would you like to go on a date with in real life?
Oh, that's such a good question.
That was a cute question. I like it.
That's hard.
Depends on what you want to do.
Yeah, if you were saying who would I want to fuck, that's a totally different question. But who would I want to go on a date with?
You can answer both of those. I'm not a family-friendly show, but
I would. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I think. Yeah, the sex one's harder because like there's some guys. But for date
as well.
Maybe I have like a group dynamic. For the date, I think I would say King, just because he's like the most romantic man in like the whole entire universe. And he would just be like, Giana, I'm gonna look into your soul and I'm gonna give you the perfect date. And you're not even going to believe how amazing it's going to be. And I'm going to write you a poem and it's going to make you cry. And then I'm going to like go down on you for 5 hours on the beach and it's going to be amazing. And it would just be all about me. And it would be so romantic and it would be amazing. So I think King for that. And then for the sex thing, I think it would have to be either Alexander Davenport because that man is creative and
terrifying.
No pain, no gain.
And
or Dante.
Yeah.
I love big men. Like I honestly sometimes have to stop myself from writing like 6'5" colossal beasts like for every book because that's just what I want. I want like a big man. I
just love that explanation.
It's hard not to because they're just my type. I'm like, ooh, the bigger the better, in lots of ways.
I would totally pick Jonathan too. A lot of them would scare me. That's literally what I was thinking. Is like most of these guys would scare me.
It's like, would you want to have sex with Priest? I mean, like, yes, he's sexual to think about, but like, you don't want him to carve his initials into your crotch. Like, I don't know. You have to be a certain type of person to feel like that would be the ideal. So
even Daddy Z would be almost too intense for me. Like, so I'm like, oh, that's a lot of focused attention from.
Oh, I could definitely have sex with Daddy Z. I almost feel, why I don't even think about Daddy Z is because in my mind, like, Lou would hate me. Like, I can't even think about having sex with him because I'm like, I can't do that to Lulu. Like, that doesn't, she would hate that, and that's just, like, not okay. And, like, I can't even wrap my mind around that. So I don't even think about sex.
He literally just belongs to Lulu.
I'm like, no, I can't touch Zeus. It's not if you can touch him. He's Lulu, so.
I think that way about some of my favorite heroes because I'm quirky. I have book husband, book fiance, and book boyfriends. Like I have levels for them. And like my book husband is Jamie Fraser. He's my book husband forever. He wins over everyone. But my book fiance is Tristan from TL Swan's Takeover. And I literally sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I could do that to, well, both of the heroines' names are Claire from both of those books. I don't know if I could do that to Claire. I don't know. Good.
Yeah, it's fair.
He's
It's
perfect
fair
for that
because you've
person.
obviously spent a whole book falling in love with both of them. So then you're kind of like, oh, but they're so perfect together. I don't know.
Yeah. And would it be the same with, like, they're perfect for that person. Anyway, we're, I don't spend hours thinking about this. Let's move on. Okay. While we're here, we have, what is a trope that you love to write or would love to write, but you haven't yet? Or have you done all of them? I mean, you've written a lot.
Sports romance. I think I say sports romance like all the time. I'm an athlete. Like I've been an athlete my whole life, and I a coach, and I love sports. And like my whole life is competing. I'm a very competitive person.
Yeah.
Like last night for fun, my friends and I did karaoke. Was it just a fun, low-key thing? No, we had made a competition of it, Like I need the competition, and I love sports. So I honestly have ideas and books planned for like so many different sports. And I would love to get to those. I just don't know really when. Probably it'll be a standalone. I have some series like planned, but probably it will be a standalone sports romance that I would like to write. Honestly, as soon as possible. Probably not again next year because I have everything planned for next year, but maybe the year after that. Who knows?
Yeah.
How many books do you plan for next year?
I have 5 planned. Yeah.
That's
And it's a lot. This year is 4, and that's the most I've ever done. And then with also like I have like a bunch of kind of like short stories and other projects and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I just had these. I really wanted to do Sebastian's trilogy. That's 3 books. And then I really wanted to do a Fallen Man book, and that's book 4. And then I had this opportunity to do something cool. And so I'm also going to do that. And that's my 5th book. And then I technically have like some smaller projects as well. So basically you guys won't see me because I'll just be alone in my dark room for the whole of next year.
Wow.
Indie authors write so much in a year. It's so crazy.
Oh, but like Kay Webster, she writes a lot in the year. Like this is
my
not
God.
It's silly that I'm even pretending.
Someone asked me to do a deep dive into Kay Webster, and I was like, do you guys know how many books she has? Like,
She has
do you know? Because I know. I've looked at the list. Yeah. It's like I read not do a deep dive.
I read a lot of her books, and I remember counting them like a few months ago when I was chatting with her, and it was like I've read like 45 of her books. That's nothing. It's not even half of her books.
That's crazy.
I know, but she's fantastic. I mean, also to be fair to me, her books are like, I think I have.
She writes about novella length. They're usually between like. She's written
this is a her book, and then this is a Giana book. So we can
Your books are always giants.
Yeah, I can't shut up. That's obviously the problem. So yeah, I can't write really a short book, but
I love the new cover of this one. It's so pretty.
Oh, cool.
You're on your phone. That's right.
She has beautiful covers, and she's just amazing. I think she's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, 5 books compared to Kay Webster is nothing. But for me, it'll be intense. But I'm excited.
Still, it's still a lot.
That's still much.
My books are usually they're like almost always over 110,000 words, and so then you times that by 5, it's like quite a lot, and then side projects and stuff. So again, you guys won't see me. I'm just gonna be in a dark cave, but you'll have lots of words, so it'll be great.
Okay, everybody, this one coming up is my last predetermined question, so start dropping your questions in. I'll be going through to pick those. But this was the last one someone asked, is if you have any advice for first-time writers.
Honestly, usually my advice is to check out someone who's good at giving advice to first-time writers, like Alessandra Torre and her group on Facebook, Alessandra's Inkers. That's a great resource. Candy Steiner does a Wrangling the Writer series on Instagram, which is for new writers. I have discovered that I'm not the best person to talk to for new writers because my process is weird. It's not like a very linear one that I can be like, do this and you'll be fine. Like, I'm not going to say lock yourself in a room for 16 hours and let's just see what happens. Like, that's not really great advice. And I feel like I've been quite lucky in my writing career. And so I don't feel like again, like starting out, I just don't really feel like I was like, I can say do X, Y, and Z and do this. So my only thing is maybe more about like how you feel about your writing. And my advice would be write what you want. Write what you want, because like you'd be surprised, but there's an audience for everything. And, you know, there's an audience for like, there was a trend a number of years ago for like dinosaur romances. Like dinosaur romances. So if people like dinosaur romances, and if people can like find that and people can write that and that can be a thing, you can write whatever you want and you'll find an audience. Like try not to doubt yourself. As a storyteller, no one can tell you what story you're supposed to write. You're the only person who knows that story. So don't be afraid. Definitely like harness the things that make you afraid. Like looking back on it, I'm like, I can't believe a Better Business person maybe wouldn't have written their first thing be a trilogy and B about cheating, which is very polarizing and most people hate. So again, that's why I say I'm not the best person for first writers to talk to. But there's so many resources out there. And I think just at the end of the day, listen to yourself and listen to what you want to do, because I think second guessing yourself is very corrosive. And if you're telling a story that isn't what you're meant to be telling, you won't be happy with it. And then other people won't be happy with it either.
Right. If Morning Glory Milking Farm can find an audience, your book can find an audience too, everyone.
Yeah. I even want to know what that is.
Oh, Giana. It's minotaur smut.
It's
okay.
a lot.
Interesting.
Oh, I can tell you haven't been on TikTok lately.
I actually like started an account on TikTok and tried to get into it, and then I ended up I have an account, but I don't even have the app anymore. I don't go on because it's like too much time.
It's a monster romance that went around it. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
maybe I'll get it just to look at that.
The point being is that anything can find an audience, and so I think that's really good advice to like write what you want to write so that it's at least pleasant in that aspect, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also people say a lot of the time like stick in one lane. You know, like if you're gonna write sports romances, only write sports romances. If you're gonna, and that's just BS. I don't think that that's true, because obviously I have not stayed in one lane. Like I've written a lot of different things. I'm going to write a lot of different things, and I think that like also readers will find you and they'll understand what you start to write. And so like people aren't looking at me being like, I only want to read this by Giana. They're like, oh, I really like Giana and I like the way she writes and I trust her as an author. And so now I'm going to try, maybe I'll even try something new because I like her so much. And that's kind of what you want to impart to your readers and like teach your readers, not I'm only going to write this. And then if you suddenly decide to deviate, then they're not going to follow you, you know?
Yeah. That is a really wise thing to say. As a lover of dark romance specifically, I'm looking for authors that I trust to take me through a really dark story, because I don't have a lot of triggers, but I also don't like things done sloppily, you know, if that's the right way to say that. And so when I find an author that can take on those topics and do it in a way that's engaging, still really sexy, but also is like taking care in a certain sense, I'm more willing to try anything that they read. Like I'm a ride or die Pam Godwin, and she writes some of the darkest books I've ever read because I know she's not fucking around with me. Like she's not just writing it, you know, like she's writing it because it did something, you know, I don't know that. So I feel like that's.
But really, it goes back to like Pam Godwin can write whatever she wants because she has like conviction in her stories. She believes in the story she's telling, and you can feel that. You're like, she has a story to tell. She believes in this. She's pouring herself into this. It's good. Versus, you know, sometimes you'll read a book maybe and you'll be like, it feels like they didn't commit. It feels like they were maybe nervous about this. And so then you feel like, oh, well, I felt there was this gap between me and this situation or this couple or whatever. And so that's why I think tell the story that you want to tell. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. All right. Patty has a very interesting question. I'm curious if your own experiences with religion have bled into the writing. I grew up conservative and now I'm not, and curious about your connection if you're comfortable talking about it.
That's a fair question, actually. I'm surprised I haven't been asked that more often because religion does come up as a factor in my books quite a bit. Sierra Simone and I have talked about this a lot. I would say that for me, when I write about religion, it's not just writing about religion. I wouldn't say that I'm like an atheist or anything like that. I think that I would say I'm agnostic. And I would say that one of the big things that I write about, and one of the big things that I work to deconstruct in like every single one of my books, is the idea of having to live up to societal structures that you inherently don't fit in, but you just feel like you have to be a certain way to conform to expectations. I don't believe in that. And that's something that I feel like in my life I've experienced a lot of. Someone was like, here, this is the rules and this is the box, and you stay here, and then you just live like that. And I think that that leads to a lot of like unfulfillment and despondency and feelings of like not belonging and all of these really negative emotions, and they can be very debilitating. And so when I talk about religion, I'm not talking about not living God. Like I think Bia and Priest is a really good example. Like Priest is an atheist. He hates religion. He doesn't even want to hear about it. It has ruined his life. And then there's Bia, who is like, I love God. And to me, like that is my personal relationship with God. And I don't care about the rules, like necessarily. I just care about being a good person and my own personal relationship with God. And I think for me, I understand both of those because they are basically taking an idea and letting it conform to who they are. And so I think, sorry, and letting it conform to who they are instead of conforming to that higher structure or ideal. So I use religion a lot as like this to show that you don't have to be A, B, C, and D to be a good person or to have a fulfilled life or to end up in heaven or anything like that. And it's not really like I have defined points of view on like types of religion or if someone should be religious or they shouldn't. It's just that it's a really good like vehicle for me to talk about those ideals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that does. That's great.
Yeah.
Patty says that's so interesting. So there you go. What's the character that lived the longest in your head before it became a book?
The Lombardi family, because I had the idea for Giselle's book when I was 16. I was having a conversation with my best friend at the time. Interestingly enough, we're no longer best friends. So I refer to myself as an invasive creature. If you are friends with me, then I will be invasive. Like I'll literally look you in the eye and I'll be like, is your father proud of you? And then you'll say yes. And I'll be like, why? Give me an example of why he's proud. Like I'm that kind of person because I'm that kind of author too. Like I just want to go deep. So I was asking my friend this invasive question. I was saying, hey, what would happen if you and my boyfriend fell in love with each other? And without hesitation, she said, oh, we would be together. And I was like, oh my God, you're such a bitch. I can't love you. And then I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And I thought about it and I was like, yeah. And there was this idea that formed of it is are two people's happiness worth the price of one person's happiness? You know, because if my boyfriend stayed with me just because he was already with me, he'd be miserable and I'd probably be miserable too because he wouldn't be happy. And then my friend would be miserable. This way, yeah, my heart is broken, but at least they're happy and at least I have the opportunity to find someone who really cares about me. And it really, like, when I thought about it, I was like, that's actually very cut and dry for me. That like makes sense. If we're just talking about emotional math, that makes sense to me. And so that happened when I was 16 and I was like, okay, yes, this is amazing. I'm going to write about this. So I actually started writing Giselle's romance when I was 16 and I had her family and I actually had all of their romances planned as well. But Giselle's didn't really change. Elena's story changed completely. Cosima's story changed completely. I had like ideas of Cosima was going to be with a soccer player that cheated on her at first. Elena was actually, she had a few different iterations too. She was going to be a photographer, a journalist, and then she ended up a lawyer. Like they've been in my head for a long time, but over the years they evolved. And yeah, so that's like, I'm 29 now. So they've been with me for a long time. Like Sebastian, I'm just getting to write his story next year. And his story has been with me for so long and I've been dying to write it. So I'm really excited.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely felt that when I read the Enamored and Enthralled, because I was like, I see that's set up a long time ago. So that was exciting. I'm excited. Judith wants to know, who are your favorite authors?
Oh, I love this question. Okay, so for romance authors, I love Sierra Simone, and I love Sierra Simone because to me, she is a poet. She's a dirty, filthy poet, and I love that. That's like my two favorite things: language use and filth. Delicious, sexy yumminess. So she does that perfectly, and I love her. I think she's fantastic. And then I have like comfort read authors like Mariana Zapata and Kristen Ashley. Like, and yeah, I think they're probably the top two where I'm like, I just can reread their books, and like they don't blow my mind or anything because there's nothing like totally revolutionary about the way they're written or like the plot or anything, but they just make me feel like I'm at home. And they just, if I don't know what to read, I'll read one of their books, and they're just always awesome. So those are like my favorite romance authors. Probably, I love Kennedy Ryan too. She falls in like the wordsmith category. Also, C.D. Reese. No one ever talks about C.D. Reese, but I think she's fantastic. She has so many good series. Yeah, and she writes beautifully.
She hurts me. It's the reason I haven't read as many of hers as I want. Like, I want to read more of hers, but like the Edge series hurt me so bad.
Honestly, her first series, Songs of Submission, which I think she actually
I read those too. Yeah.
She changed it to like One Night with Him, I think it's the first one now. But that's so freaking good. It's amazing, and I highly recommend it. And then she's actually got a really good Mafia the trilogy.
Spin is
there's a trilogy she's writing right now, but my favorite one is I think it's called Songs of Corruption, and highly recommend if you like Mafia. That series is amazing.
Hers are mostly connected too. She has a family.
She writes also about a family, like the Drazen family. But she's really good. So those are like for romance, and then my top 3 authors of all time are Jane Austen, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and John Irving.
Nice. A little.
Madeline Miller, actually, I'm gonna include her too. Song of Achilles and Circe.
Oh yeah, those are some.
Have you read the Song of Achilles yet?
Not yet. I'm so scared to read that.
And then when you cry,
I don't want to.
It's about time.
Jessica,
you read this and you cry.
The fact that Daniel Green read Song of Achilles before us.
So scared though. For whatever
It's okay. Let me put it like this. It's one of those beautiful books that will leave a bruise on your soul that will always be tender, and it will always kind of ache whenever you think about it.
You're not making it sound any
better.
But it also will make your life, like, it's so visceral and it's so moving. It like will make your life better. Like, it's so good. You have to read it. You'll love it. You love misery and pain. And
I do.
Are you kidding? You're gonna love it so much. I need you, please.
It's too hyped is the thing.
It's hyped.
No, it's not. It's not.
For a reason.
It's gotten so much more hype now though because of TikTok, and now I'm nervous.
I don't mean bad hype. I mean like I've seen everyone read it, not just Roman. Like everyone's read it, and so that's when I get scared. Is when people not in my like bubble read it. I'm like, oh no,
I can't trust you.
Like, okay, try to trust me.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's so beautiful, and it's just so well done, and I really like highly recommend it. And like Wolf's, you love Wolf's Song. You gotta read it. You gotta read it.
I know.
Love it. I guarantee. Okay. If you don't love it, then like. I don't know. You can hide me in the
question
face
though.
See me, okay?
Like, does it have an HEA though? Is the issue?
Do you know the story of Achilles?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so
like I'm asking this rhetorically.
I know, but
I'm a romance reader, so when you tell me I love it and it's beautiful, but it doesn't have an HEA,
no. There is an HEA, but it's like of a type.
Okay.
It's sad, but it's also freaking beautiful. Okay, so come on, guys, you gotta do it. Seriously, you take one thing away from today, all of you.
Go read
this book. It's so beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
I think like when I read it last summer, and knowing how both Jess and Jen, both of you guys, how you like books, I think that you guys, it's like intimidating, but I think you'll really feel a lot more emotion than you think while reading it. Like if that makes sense. But I don't want to say
I used to read stuff like that. That's the thing, is that I've just like gotten to the point where I don't want things to hurt me as much. So I have to be in the mood. And I just told all my
knowing it'll hurt me.
Like, I just read this, and this is my like book of the year that could make me bawl. And now I need a good 6 months to recover from that level of pain, and then maybe I'll try.
I just highly recommend. That's all I'll say.
All right. Okay, let's switch to something totally hilarious, because Tiffany wants to know, speaking back to your karaoke, do you have a go-to song?
I always do "Wanna Be" by the Spice Girls, because come on, like, obviously it's like blasphemy if you don't do that song. It's so good. And I also do I do like a really weird mix of songs, honestly. I really like country music, so I always do "Country Girl Shake It For Me," because I know all the lyrics, and I actually know, like, I will sing along to the guitar solo as well.
I always do "Heads Carolina, Tails California." So
love it.
That's my like go-to.
Love it. Love it. There's so many great karaoke songs. I never get tired of karaoke. And it's not about being good. That's my favorite thing. Is you just like, it's about just like balls to the wall, belting it out, even if you can't, having fun. And that's awesome.
I love that.
I really like Giana's question too. I would like to talk about Giana's.
Yep,
okay.
It's on the list.
Okay.
Would you ever write a plus size heroine? Have you? I'm not sure. Or will you? There has been one.
I don't even know if I did, if I would explicitly be like, she's a plus size heroine, because I don't think that's necessary. Like, in my mind, Giselle is definitely not like slender. But I would, I guess. I don't know.
You just maybe don't see people that way when you're writing.
I don't really, I just don't. I don't think I would be like, I'm gonna write a plus size heroine. I think it would, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer. That people ask me that, and I never know really what to say, because like I would, but I don't have a plan to, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that's perfectly fair. I think that I almost like when there's not a lot of description of a heroine either way, because I self-insert anyway. I'm a self-inserting reader. So even if you tell me someone looks like something, like they look like me when I'm reading.
Right.
So the more like specific body hints that are in there, then I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's not me.
Fair enough.
Would you write a paranormal romance?
I think Jess knows the answer to this, because I think she was excited. Yes, I will. But again, like, guys, there's only so much time, so I don't know when I will, but I've had a vampire series planned for a long time.
Yeah.
And like the first book's like half written, actually, because I write it on the side sometimes, and I love paranormal, but I just have so much to write and so little time. So
that dream, 8 years old, and you dream about vampires. You know, dreaming about vampires can be very helpful for people.
I just love vampires. Like, to me,
I love it too.
They're the superior supernatural entity, like, for me. Because they're just something about them that's, I don't know, it's like,
they're the OG dark romance heroes.
Yeah.
Like, they are the OG.
Also, like, I'm a Twilight person. So, I mean, there's also that. And I have no shame about it. I watch them. I watch the movies, like, every couple months.
They were number one on Netflix for a month straight.
When they came on.
Yeah.
It's like super fair, because they're horrible, but they're so wonderful. They're just the best. Like, if
play a drinking game. Play a drinking game with it whenever
Bella blinks like this.
And whenever Charlie's the funniest person in the room.
Oh, well, so always. Charlie, honestly, I have a huge dad crush on Charlie. He's a hot dad.
Oh my God.
Totally.
Oh, I love it so much. Anyway, no, I just think they always come back. Like, they always come back. There's always, like, right now, there's a big, like, rush of them again, too. And they're so just, like, vampires are, like, comfort reads for me.
I'd say it's nostalgic. Yeah.
I just dive in and I'm like, I basically know what the rules are. You know, it's like when you're reading that, you're like, there might be some tweaks, but, like, I don't have to think too hard. I'm just like, okay, who's the vampire? Who's the girl? Okay, let's go. I like it. Let's go.
It's just like they're dangerous. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, that they're sexy and they're dangerous. We love a dangerous hero, right? And like, there's really not much that's more dangerous than a vampire. And it's that idea that we all love of being able to have power over a dangerous thing like that, and having that dangerous entity protect us because they love us. Like, it's that contrast that's so delicious, and like I think will always be a universal trope that people love.
Yeah. I just read an vampire one last night. Funny to say. Deep Desire. I read that last night. It wasn't great, unfortunately. But I was like, yeah, I know. That was like, I was like, I just read a vampire last night. Why didn't I remember that? Oh, yeah, it's because it is like
wasn't very good.
It was written in 2009. So I think that's part of the problem. It's like, it was a very old one. But anyway, no, that's awesome. I love it. Oh, yes. Okay. So we want to ask this. Are there tropes you avoid due to other people's opinions, although you want to write them?
I mean, after watching this whole thing, it's not surprising the answer is no. I have zero qualms. I probably should. Like, I remember writing Enthralled, which is a very, very dark romance.
Yes.
And I wrote it, and like, you know, I had said it was a dark romance, and then one of my friends read it, and I was like, so what did you think? And she was quiet, and she was like, it was really fucked up. Yeah, it was really fun. And I was like, really? I didn't feel like it was maybe dark enough. And she was like, you can't talk, you don't get it, because and that's the thing for me, is I feel like I'm really, like, I will get on my soapbox about being open-minded. Like, that is a big thing for me. I do not want to judge anyone. I don't want to judge anything. I want to try to at least process opinions and things that are outside of my comfort zone, because I think that makes you like a better person, and it informs your own opinions at the very least, all these things. So I think that because of that, I often don't really know where the boundary is for other people. like Dead Man Walking, you know, that also has some pretty intense things in it. But like, I was like, oh, it's like not that bad, you know, whatever. And people were like, well, it's like pretty dark. There's lots of triggers. So I was like, oh, weird. Okay, that's good to know. Like, I just don't think that I would ever have this idea for a book and be like, oh, I shouldn't do that, because I don't think I'd know that I shouldn't do that even. So I don't care. Like, if someone doesn't want to read one of my books, I am not going to be offended. I'm honestly just thrilled and shocked and awed when someone does want to read one of my books. So it's fine. If I write something that someone isn't interested in, I totally respect that, but I wouldn't not write something just to make people happy.
Yeah.
It always makes me mad about your initial trilogy when people hate cheating, but they read it, and I was like, it's literally called The Affair.
Yeah.
I can't even
I don't know what
times. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, if you read the blurb, obvious. The title is The Affair. Like, in every single, even in the book when you start to read it, I think in the first chapter, he says that he has a girlfriend. So it's like, but a lot of the time people like to read things just to complain. I don't know. And I remember when I was first starting out, it was my first book, and there were a lot of bad reviews being like, well, this is about cheating. I hate cheating. And I was like, oh no, did I do something wrong? And then I was like, no. I blasted that this was about cheating in almost every way that you can. And that's okay. Like, and there's inevitably going to be, people ask all the time, like, how do you deal with bad reviews? I just don't. Like, yes, honestly, I'm kind of a glutton for punishment, and so I will read them a lot of the time. Like, I'll have a weak moment, I'll read them. And they used to eviscerate me. Like, I'm a very sensitive person. If you even, like, I've worked on it over the course of my life, but I'm very sensitive. So I used to, like, sit and cry because I would be so upset. Yeah. And then I realized that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Mm-hmm. And, you know, actually, Nicola Fiorina, the author, I think I pronounced her name wrong. Yep. She had a really interesting post, if you want to go look at her Instagram, a little while back, basically saying someone had written
right now.
Oh!
I'm reading it right now.
Oh my god. So I actually haven't read any of her books, but I saw this post and I was like, this is really cool. She said that someone had written a review saying that her book was bad. And she wrote this post saying, my book is not bad. You cannot say my book is bad because that is subjective. It can be bad to you, but that does not make my book bad. And I was like, yes, duh, like, of course. I mean, art is subjective. It's meant to evoke an emotion. Sometimes that's a bad emotion. That's okay. And like, readers are entitled to have their opinions. I think the only time where I get upset sometimes, or I can understand other people definitely getting upset, is there are definitely reviewers who don't think that authors are human beings. I'm a human being. I'm here. I'm talking to you. Like, I feel I'm very open with my readers. And so like, I hope that everyone knows I'm a human. So you can not like my books, but if you go in and you're like, this person is trash, this author sucks, she should like quit her job, you know, she should stop writing, like that is just not necessary. It's hurtful. And I think it's just always good to practice kindness, even if you don't think an author's going to see it. Do you really want to put that negativity out in the world anyway? Like, we can all be, I'm big on respect other people. I'll respect that you didn't like my book if you can respect that I'm a human being and you can write a respectfully dismissive review. But yeah, at the end of the day, they read my book. Whatever. They didn't like it. That's okay. They don't have to read any other of my books. I don't want them to. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. That's so true. One of the reasons why, you know, that I like to know the tropes or the triggers for a book is exactly like you said, because especially as my channel gets bigger, I don't like negativity in my space at all. Like, I don't do rant reviews unless I like get quote unquote like tricked into a book. Like, that's why I feel like trigger warnings are good or things, because it's like, if I know that, I'm going to stay away from that book, you know, and then I don't have to like, because people are going to ask me, like, people saw me reading a certain book and they're like, oh, I can't wait to hear it. And then I'm like, you're not going to want to hear what I want to say. I'm so sorry. I didn't like it. So it's like, you know, there are still some books where, and it's always subjective. It's always subjective. Like, your least favorite book is going to be someone's favorite book. And it's my place to tell you it can't be your favorite. I can only say what my opinion about something is.
Honestly, it's a little bit trite, but you can think of it as like one person's trash is another person's treasure. Like, honestly, there's going to be someone out there that, like, even if 400 people, like 499 people out of 500 people hate this one book, there's going to be one person that's like, this book changed my life. And are we going to crap on that person for liking that book just because we didn't? Why do we care? She can like that book. That's okay. It doesn't matter. And I just think, I'm really just, I really have no emotions about people like hating books anymore, except for that authors are humans, and just don't forget that, because we all want to treat each other with kindness. We all deserve kindness. And that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah. And a lot of negative reviews though, like, inspire people to pick it up, because they're like, oh, this was like way too dark for me. I'm like, oh, what book are you talking about?
Yeah. It was way too dirty. It was all just sex.
Let me check it out. Yeah.
That's very true. I have heard that a lot too. Yeah.
There's some authors on TikTok, Giana, that do that. They're like, let me show you some 1-star reviews that are going to convince you to read my book. And they'll like show this book with sex from start to finish. And I was like, oh, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, it's art, it's subjective, and that's why even negative reviews can work to rein people in. So, yeah.
It still surprises me. I mean, it shouldn't, but I mean, us all being like romance lovers, I think we're more used to that than other genres of people shitting on our stuff, because people get a hold of it who aren't expecting it, and they'll personally judge you for something that you like. And it's just, it all expounds out. I mean, I pretty much like Teflon at that point, like where I'm at this point. But I can't even imagine.
That bothers me. Not negative reviews, but the people crapping on romance in general, romance readers, romance authors. Even for me, like, you know, usually people are like, what do you do? And I go, oh, I write books. And they're like, oh, cool. What kind of books? And I'm like, romance. And a lot of the time there's this kind of like, oh, okay. Okay, so like mommy porn, or like, oh, so like, do you make it? Literally, people ask me all the time, do you make any money doing that? And I'm like, if I was even saying I write thrillers, I don't think that you would say that. But there's this idea that like romance is lesser, and so it's not like, people are like, oh, it's so cool that you're a writer, and then I say I'm a romance writer, and then there's just, I can see so often people kind of take a step back and be like, oh, don't really like want to talk about that, or that's kind of weird, I don't like that. And I feel a lot of the time like I have to defend myself, and I don't, because I just like, I don't care if you don't think that's cool, then I don't think you're cool. It's fine. But I hate that people, like, as a community, the romance community is always defending itself. I don't think we should just be like, we're just gonna ignore you, because we don't care about your voice. You clearly don't like ours, so we just won't give you anything, because we're just gonna do our thing. And people in the romance community, for the most part, are like the warmest, most open, most accepting and lovely human beings. We're not bad people. I write some dark, horrible stuff. If you know me, I'm like, my PA Annette calls me sunshine. Like, I'm always happy. I'm always willing to lend a hand. Like, I love people, and I'm like a puppy. I'm so excitable and like can be really sweet. I'm definitely, you wouldn't look at me and be like, this girl is going to write about sex trafficking and like a man like whipping a girl until she comes. You just don't think about that. And that's because what I write isn't who I am. What you read isn't who you are. And it pisses me off, not to be on my soapbox, but just one more thing. People are like getting mad at Stephen King for writing about murder and being like, he is encouraging people to murder other people, versus we write something and they're like, you're encouraging that. You're encouraging society.
Game of Thrones.
Horrible things. It's like, listen, if you're that impressionable, then you need to check yourself. And also, like, art and the artist are not the same thing. And the art lover is not the same as the art that they love. And so we just all need to realize that and respect each other. It doesn't matter if you don't like, or even some of the romance authors and books that like people really hate on because they do incest, or they do like age gaps, or they do something that makes other people uncomfortable. It's like, it's not hurting you to be there, and for other people to like it. Relax. Clearly there's problems with you as a human being and in your life that make you feel like you need to attack this, but it's not doing anything to you, and these people do not deserve your hatred for enjoying something that is not harming you.
And then it gets found on Amazon, and
it's ridiculous. And like people get death threats and stuff for writing certain things, and it's like, that's not necessary. Come on. Like, we're not the first people in the history of the world to write erotica or to write anything like that. Like, it's been going on for centuries. People are drawn to sex and like the more deviant side of nature, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a really cool thing, and it's really great that we have this community where we can explore that in a healthy and respectful way. And people shouldn't crap on that. Anyway, sorry about my little rampage, but I just feel very passionate about it. It's like, we're not bad people. We're actually lovely people, and what we write has nothing, or read has nothing to do with that.
I had to grab my charger, so I just pop away. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, Game of Thrones is one of like the darkest fantasy series like ever, and it gets all the love and respect that there is,
with incest as well. Yeah,
like
literally.
Yeah, the literal kind. The literal. But yeah, Tori, Jessica, did you have any questions for her? I went through all the questions in the comments so far, and I mean, wow, we've been talking an hour and a half already. Like I said, I will talk all.
It's so hard because you're just like have so much fun, and you just want to like keep going. Do you guys have any questions? I feel like you guys didn't get to ask any.
I know.
There were some good ones that were asked. Yeah, there was a lot.
I think, well, the only one I had was, do you ever, because you said you're writing 5 books next year, do you ever feel pressured by the standard of like how fast indie romance authors write to write more?
No, because I'm not comparative really, and I try really hard not to be. I think for me, honestly, where it comes from is when I first started writing romance, I was doing my master's, and so I wasn't like, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I just started writing books and publishing them and like into the ether and had no idea what was going on. So that was like the first 2 or 3 years of my career. And then it was only in like 2018 that I decided to actually try to be a romance author as my job. And that was when I wrote Lessons in Corruption and Welcome to the Dark Side. And since then I moved back to Canada, and I've been like, you know, moving in with my boyfriend and getting a dog and doing these things. But in the last couple of years, I've actually had time, because I haven't been in school and I haven't been having another job, to actually dedicate to being an author. And right now I don't have as many responsibilities as I could have, aka like children. And so for me, I want to write as many words as I can before that happens, because I know inevitably I won't have the same amount of time. So I just want to make use of it. Not even, honestly, I'm pretty selfish. I'm thinking about like my desires, not my readers' desires. I want to write these stories. I'm the kind of person, like Kay Webster calls it, she's like a squirrel. She's like, oh, an idea. And I am like that too, but I call it creative ADD. Like, I have an idea like every day. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get to that. So now I just have like 85 ideas in some sort of fruition. And I'm like, I need to get to all these ideas. So for me, I just want to really be dedicated to my craft and to like actually sitting down and writing so that I can get as much out as I can, because I want to write these stories. And I know that in like 3 years, I'm not going to be able to write 5 books in a year. I just know that. So while I can, I would like to
spoil us now.
So that's just why I'm writing kind of more and more. It's because these last couple of years I've had the opportunity to do that. Yeah.
I like it. Well, this has been amazing.
Thanks, you guys, for talking to me. It was so much fun. Oh my gosh. It got me through the week. I had so many deadlines. And I was like, no, it's going to be great. You're going to hang out with these girls and you're going to talk books. And it's going to be so much fun. And it really was. And I'm so, honored that you guys wanted to chat with me. It means a lot.
Yeah, this was so exciting. Well, I'll go ahead and end the broadcast. If you just will wait for a minute, we'll get everyone who showed up. This was so much fun. Thank you for your questions. I don't have the next author hangout planned yet. I have a couple ideas percolating, so make sure you guys send me anyone that you would like me to reach out to. I'm getting braver in that respect, so we'll see who we can get on here next. So thanks, everyone. Have a great Labor Day weekend if you're in the States, and have a good night.
Bye, guys.